Good morning, everyone. So thank you all for being here, and sorry for the postponing of the presentation. I was sick last week. So I'm a second-year PhD student here in Bordeaux under the supervision of Anna Beyeler. And the goal of my PhD thesis is to understand the role of insular cortex neurons and how they encode anxiety-related behaviors in mice. And as Fiola said, today I will be presenting a paper that has been published in Nature Human Behavior on the past, present, and future of registered reports. So I can start if you want, guys.
I just want to add one thing. So the author of the paper, Chambers, he said he will be on Twitter following, waiting for his questions live today. So we will try to post some as the discussion goes. And for the ones that are new, we usually record and post on YouTube only the presentation part, but the discussion we cut. Just for everyone. Okay, cool. Go ahead, please.
So when I was about to choose the paper, I found this one, and actually I've never heard about registered reports before. I don't know if you guys heard about it before. So, so I will just, before starting the presentation, present the main goals of the registered reports. So one of the main goals is to reduce biased research practice, such as hoarding and selective reporting. I will try to put the laser on. Yes. The second one is to mitigate publication bias by journals and outcome bias by reviewers. The third one is to distinguish the outcomes of pre-planned confirmatory research from exploratory data analysis. And finally, to promote reproducibility and transparency. So the pipeline of the review goes from the history, then to progress, and to the future prospects of the registered reports. So regarding the basics of the registered report, so here is a typical workflow for the registered report, and it's split into two stages. So the first one is the pre-study review of the registered reports. So basically, you review the introduction, the methods, and the proposed analysis, and the pilot data, and you can add some preliminary data as a proof of concept. And then it goes to the editorial board, and it can be either rejected, but the goal is to go for in-principle acceptance, which means that it's a guarantee that your paper will be published at the end, and it will be published as a stage 2 paper published, let's say. So after that, the study can be conducted so that the results can be, you can do the experiments, and then it goes back to the original reviewers, and then it can be reviewed to ensure that the conclusions are appropriately evidence-based. And normally it will be published, but it can be rejected if the authors from the study didn't follow the methods at the beginning of the stage 1. If you have any questions, you can interrupt me if you have any questions. So registered reports are mostly a subset of a wider family of pre-registration methods. So it includes so the registered reports, as I showed you. So it's a peer review, and it goes to in-principle acceptance before research is undertaken. It is now adopted by over 200 journals. You have also the study pre-registration. So it doesn't need an in-principle acceptance, and it's only publishing of protocol articles. And you have also the pre-registered replication reports. So it's now adopted by only one journal, which is the Perspectives on Psychological Science, and it has been initiated in 2014. And you have the three of them. So regarding the history and the key milestone in the evolution of these registered reports, so it has been first launched independently at two journals, so Cortex and Perspectives on Psychological Science. So it has been launched first in March 2013, and the first registered reports have been published in 2014. Then you can see that over the time, there has been a huge increase of the number of journals that have adopted this type of format. And you can see here in 2017 that Nature Human Behavior or Nature Communication has launched that type of format. And also in 2020, for the COVID-19 pandemic, some journals such as the Royal Society of Open Science and other journals have launched a rapid review network for the COVID-19, so that the peer review stage 1 was only done within 7 days. You have to know that the stage 1 review takes several months, so we can discuss it afterwards. So regarding the spread and the author demographic, so it's that type of format of journals is a format is proposed over 300 journals. And if you look at the fields that have adopted this type of format, it's mainly in the social science for 45%. For the life science, in our case, it's only 25%. And if we look at all of over the 80 journals that have been published as registered reports, it's mainly for social science and around 15% for the life science field. And if we are looking at who is publishing in those type of journals, if you're looking at all of the registered reports, it is mainly the early career researchers that will publish as a first author. Then it will be the PhD students and then the postdocs. And if we are looking at the journal Cortex, it's also mainly the early career researchers that will publish this type of format of journal of paper. So it's likely that they are more popular among early career researchers compared with regular articles, but at least for Cortex. So I made a timeline. So the first, if we go back to 1878, so you have Charles Peirce, that was one of the first to lay the foundation of the pre-registration of these protocols. And he claimed that the hypothesis should be distinctly put as a question before making the observations, which are to test its truth. Then in 1950, it was Adrien de Root that was making the distinction in between exploratory from confirmatory research, which is vital for scientific progress. Then Robert Rosenthal, which is a professor of psychology in 1966, he was one of the earliest to claim the proposal for registered report type review process. And he claimed that what we may need is a system for evaluating research based only on the procedures employed. And one of the first registered reports was published in 1976 in a parapsychology review. So yeah, but I couldn't open it because I didn't have the access. So now we are going to go to the early impact of the registered reports, which is the first one will be the bias control. So registered reports should yield a greater proportion of negative results. So if you're looking at this graph, so it represents the percentage of null findings in between registered reports and traditional literature. And as you can see, is that registered reports publish 60% of null findings compared to typical articles for only 10%. And if you're looking at this paper, which shows that around 4% of regular articles failed to confirm the first hypothesis, compared to around 50% of registered persons that publish that do not confirm their first hypothesis. So it is really striking. So there could be different hypotheses, and the first one would be that for regular articles, it could be that they are eliminating selective reporting, or there will be some harking, so hypotheses after results are known, or probably they are testing some riskier hypothesis. I don't know. A second early impact of registered reports are they can be reproduced computationally. So one of their policy of the registered report is that they have more stringent expectation concerning open data and code. So especially they have a transparency of code availability. And I took some results from different papers, so showing that results from the registered report can be more readily reproduced from the acquired data compared with the regular articles. And out of 35 results published in psychology, around 60% of them were computationally reproducible. Regarding the citation profile, so here represented in blue, you have the registered report, and here the regular articles. In this study, it has been shown that registered reports are cited the same or are slightly higher than comparable regular articles, which is really interesting because some people can claim that, okay, I'm publishing for a registered report, so they are kind of afraid to publish negative results, so they will see their number of citations decreasing, but actually it's not the case. And one of the other early impacts of registered reports is the study quality. So here, the positive results are an advantage for the registered reports. Here, you have, so the line here from 0, and then you have positive results. And the negative results are an advantage for non-registered reports, so for regular articles. And you have 3 types of control. So evaluation before knowing study outcomes, evaluation after knowing study outcomes, and after finishing the paper. And you can see that registered reports outperform so regular articles on several criteria. And first, the methodological rigor, the overall article quality, the statistical robustness, and also the novelty and the creativity of the study. Since the launching of the registered reports, there has been some emerging formats for this type of papers. So first, the results blind review. So stage 1 peer review is undertaken after results are known to the author, but before they are known to the reviewers. So it can prevent the delay to collect data for the second stage. Then there is an accountable replication. So you can commit to publishing all methodological sound replication of the published findings, meaning that there is a close proximity of the methodology. There is a methodologically proximity between the replication and the target study. Also, you have a type of emerging format, which is the post-publication peer review registered reports. So the stage 1 manuscript is published almost immediately following the initial receipt and is then openly reviewed. You have the publisher level registered reports, meaning that you have a distributed model for the stage 1 and stage 2 manuscript can be reviewed and published in different journals under the same publisher. And finally, you have the publisher independent registered reports. So there is a peer community in registered reports, which is that will be called the PCI-RR, so that stage 1 and stage 2 preprints are reviewed independently of the journals, meaning that this community of the PCI can issue a positive recommendation, and authors now, after that, can choose to publish their preprints in any journals that is PCI friendly. So what makes a good registered report if you want to one day to make one? So the first one will be to have a scientific, valid, and important question to answer. Then the hypothesis needs to be clearly stated. There has to be a study procedure and an analysis plan. Then it needs to have a link in between the research question, the theory and its specification, the hypothesis and the sampling plan, and the contingent interpretation given different outcomes. And after the results are known, you have to distinguish the prospective outcomes from the outcomes of any post-hoc analysis, deviating from the pre-registered plans. Also, it needs to have a clear differentiation of exploratory and confirmatory outcomes. And then the study data, the code, and the digital materials have to be available publicly. But of course, there are some limitations and drawbacks for the registered reports. So you have the first one, the lack of protocol transparency. So in 2013, Cortex did not require stage 1 articles to be made public. And there is the study of Hardwick in 2018 showing that over 70 journals that have adopted registered reports permanently, half of them require the protocols to be publicly registered. So it's still an ongoing task to require protocol transparency, and sometimes it can be quite of a mess, I think. There's also a lack of standardization, so those reports are registered and reported inconsistently, and the third limitation is the delay. As I told you before, to go from the stage 1 to have this in principle acceptance, it can take several months. So now the goal is to decrease this delay, and sometimes the delay can be much more increased when you need an ethical approval. So if you're looking at this graph, so you're conducting a study and you need the ethical approval of your institutional editorial board. You have two types of options, and you have 2 points to take into consideration. The first one is the tolerance of the ethical committee for methodological flexibility and the requirements of the journal's policy. So if everything goes well and you have the agreement of the ethics committee, you can conduct your study well. If it's not the case, you will have some problem with the ethics committee, and they will need an exact protocol that can be that needs to be approved, and then you have to see the requirements of the journal policy. So sometimes journal policy do not require some ethical improvement, let's say. So authors have to deal with several requirements from the journal's policy. So it can be tricky sometimes, I guess. So the authors discussed afterwards the future of the registered reports and what could be improved. So the first point to be improved is the efficiency. And one way to improve efficiency will be to do some rapid reviews of the stage 1. And one solution will be to create a network composed of scientists and that can evaluate stage 1 registered reports within a short time frame. It has been launched by the Royal Society Open Science for COVID-19. A second point will be to reschedule the review. So as I told you, it takes several months to be reviewed. So here is the timeline of the typical review. So we prepare the manuscript, and then it goes to the editorial board. The manuscript is then submitted. It goes to the editorial triage. And so the editors are looking for reviewers, and it takes a long time to finally go to the in-principle acceptance if your paper will be submitted, not submitted, but published. One possibility, one ideal schedule possibility is that, okay, you submit a short structured protocol for consideration, called here as a snapshot, and then it will go to the editorial triage, and during that, the author can prepare the manuscript, and the authors can prepare the manuscript, and the editors are looking for reviewers. So it shortened the time of the reviewing, and then it goes as the same. So they are waiting for the in-principle acceptance, and then they can conduct the study and produce the results. So this timeline could reduce the initial stage 1 review time from weeks, months down to a matter of days. A third point will be is the observer evaluator review. So they're claiming in the paper that one way to improve the system is to abolish the current peer review system. I don't think it will happen, but that's a possibility. One more reliable possibility is that to use an existing infrastructure, such as the Open Science Framework. One already existing is the virtual laboratory space. So you put the reviewers in that space, and they can already monitoring, comment, and do some approval of the specific components of your study. And it could make registered reports more compatible with the rapid sequential workflow that is common in field, such as in chemical biology or in virology. Another point to be improved is the quality, the accountability, and the rewards of the registered reports. So apparently I didn't know, but when I read the paper, is that when you want to do a registered report, you have to follow a specific workflow, and sometimes it's really time consuming, and it has to respect some specific guidelines. So the idea will be to compute, to do a creation of a user-friendly web-based registered report generation tool, so that everyone has the same tool to create the registered reports. A second point is the community monitoring and feedback. So one of the issues of journal accountability is that little is known about the quality of editing and review at the registered report adopted journal. So journals should publish all data on the number of, because when you want to publish a registered report at a specific journal, you don't know if the quality of the reviews will be good enough, because you don't have any statistical data to see, okay, how many registered reports has been published during that year for that journal. So sometimes you'll go a little bit blind for that to go for publishing a registered report in that journal. So it needs to be improved at some point in this case. Also, the training and accreditation for editors. So editors need to be skilled and trained. It needs to be a requirement, actually, because there is a lot of variability in the standard editing with the increase of registered reports. So we need to provide editors with training materials and massive open-line courses. And finally, reviewer recognition. So for the journals, they need to adopt an open sign review policy. Apparently, Royal Society Open Science and another journal have already this type of policy. Because reviewers do a lot actually for this type of journal to be published in their journal, for this paper to be published in this type of journal. So the reviewers can further list their contribution in online platforms such as Publon. So I put the link here if you want to go afterwards. And last point of the presentation is the research evaluation. So registered reports will need to be recognized with formal systems for evaluating research quality. One of the examples is the UK 2021 Research Excellence Framework that has noted registered reports as an indicator of research rigor. And in this case, it could attract increased funding for their institutions. And the UCL, so University College London, encourages to use registered reports where appropriate. So when you have the go from your institution, it helps researchers to publish in that type of format, I think. So as a conclusion, I hope I convinced you that registered reports are a powerful tool to reporting and a powerful antidote to reporting and publication bias. And I will be happy to discuss more points with you guys. So do not hesitate if you have any questions.
Thank you.